Back in 2019, we were introduced to Arrako, which is the sister island of Krakoa, the island where the mutants we know and love are all currently living. But Arrako is home to a wide variety of newly introduced mutants who have their own unique culture and their own special ways of doing things. Now, there's a lot of lore about the island of Arrako, but what I specifically am going to cover in this video is the Great Ring of Arrako, which is the governing body of the island, just as the Quiet Council is the governing body of Krakoa. So before we get into who is on the council, I'll briefly break down how it works. There are 4 sections which each have 3 seats, and these act sort of like traditional branches of government. There is first Dawn, which has the seats of Victory, Stalemate, and Loss, and this is the wartime section of the Great Ring, so their expertise is deferred to if the matter at hand is about war. Then there is Day, which is the peacetime section, which contains the seats of Above Us, All Around Us, and Below Us, and we will break down these seat specializations later when we go over the members. Next up, there is the Dusk section, which isn't so much a group deferred to for specific expertise, but is instead a group dedicated to conceptual matters of the nation, and the seats for this one are the seat of Law, of History, and of Dreams. And finally, there's the Night section, which we know basically nothing about because that information is kept locked down and the members are intentionally unknown and their purposes are also unknown. So unfortunately, that's all we will get out of it for this video at least. I should note that there's also a representative of the island of Arrako, since it is sentient, and this is a mirror to Doug's role with the Quiet Council and how he speaks for the island of Krakoa. With all that, let's get started by taking a look at the Dawn section. Currently sitting in the seat of Victory is Iska the Unbeaten, who, like the entire ring, is an Omega level mutant. This is one of the most important and most consulted seats of the Great Ring, and it's traditionally deferred to when a battle has been won, which is extremely fitting for the mutant who sits in that seat, since Iska's power is the inability to lose. She will always win. Probability will always be manipulated in her favor, no matter the cost, which is an insane power, but it is in fact exploitable, as we recently witnessed in X-Men Red when Sunspot manipulated her into a bet to make his desired outcome come to light. And if you're wondering how her power factors into her being in a government system where she has a vote, well, she always abstains from any voting matter because her ability would cause the others to change their votes so she would win. Next up, sitting in the seat of Stalemate is Idol the Future Seer. This seat is deferred to in situations where there's no specific winner. Idol is really interesting because she is an Omega level prophet whose powers enable her to see extremely accurate versions of the future. She even once predicted that Krakoa and Arrako would come together again and then be permanently split as their own separate islands too. That, however, was the last prediction that she uttered since her tongue was cut off by Tarn the Uncaring, who is a character we'll talk about here shortly. Currently sitting in the seat of Loss is a character many of us are much more familiar with, and that is Magneto himself, the Master of Magnetism. This seat is deferred to when wars or battles are lost, but how did a Krakoa mutant end up sitting here? Well, the way to get a spot on the Great Ring is through challenge, and Magneto very recently challenged and defeated the previous Omega level mutant who sat in this seat, Tarn the Uncaring. So he's not currently a member of the Great Ring, but he's pretty important, so let's briefly talk about Tarn. Tarn the Uncaring's power is the ability to telepathically manipulate and rewrite DNA, which truly has limitless possibilities. He can deform, he can remove powers, he can age you, he can de-age you, pretty much anything. So how did he lose his seat to Magneto with an insane power set like that? Well, there was a bit of trickery involved and some outside forces acting upon the fight, but basically Magneto put his helmet on Tarn, which, if you'll recall from X-Men history, Magneto's helmet blocks psychokinetic energy, which is how Tarn uses his powers. So after the removal of Tarn's powers, all Magneto had to do was crush his head with the helmet. Moving on to the Day section, we have Laktuka the Knower sitting in the seat of Above Us, which is in charge of all matters of the heavens. We're not exactly sure what this means, but one thing, for example, that Laktuka did as a member of the Great Ring was assist with moving the entire island of Arrako to Mars. Lactuca has a super interesting power too, which is Omega level spatial awareness. They know where everything is and nothing can be lost to them. Then we have the seat of all around us with another very familiar mutant, Storm, who has the ability to manipulate the weather, which lends itself to a wide array of insanely powerful abilities. This seat deals with a lot of everyday matters like land issues, people issues, and more, and it's important to note that this seat gets 2 votes on all matters, as the person in this position is also referred to as the Regent of Arrako. So how did Storm win this seat? Well, after she helped terraform Mars and Arrako was moved there, Storm challenged a mutant known as Nameless the Shapeshifter Queen, who had the ability to shapeshift into anyone and utilize their powers in their prime. Storm won this battle, and Nameless, rather than yielding the fight, chose to die instead. And in the seat of below us, we have Sobunar of the Depths, a mutant whose blood is literally an ocean with an entire ecosystem to it, and he can use it to hydrate worlds as he did when terraforming Mars in the Planet-Size X-Men issue. So far, that's really the only duty we've seen him do specifically as the seat of below us, but he's got a really fantastic character design, interesting powers, and I'm excited to see him do more later on. He was even offered a role on Krakoa's Quiet Council by Storm, but Sobunar refused that offer. Moving on to the Dusk section, we'll start off with Aura Serrata sitting in the seat of law. So basically, this is the criminal justice system of Arrako, and the position in charge of the Circle Perilous, where challenges are witnessed. She interprets the law and makes sure it's followed to accordance, and she has the final say on all legal matters. Her mutant ability is the power to look at anything or anyone and completely erase them from existence. She's being featured a lot in Legion of X and occasionally in X-Men Red, so I'm hoping we'll get some great displays of power from her real soon. Sitting in the seat of history with the responsibility of documenting and interpreting Arrako's history is the mutant Xylo the First Defender. Interestingly enough, this mutant is essentially an insect hive mind that evolves throughout the years. So along with the basic immortality of the character, he also has terraforming and telekinesis abilities, which were displayed in the terraforming of Mars when he imbued the soil with the necessities needed for life, and he also created the breathable atmosphere. This is another character that I'm very excited to learn more about in the future. And in the Seat of Dreams, we have Lotus Logos. The responsibility of this seat is to all matters of artistic representation of Arrako, which is an interesting area of Arrako I feel hasn't been too explored yet, but it is a fitting spot for this character because Lotus Logos' mutant ability is to essentially use power words to create an unlimited amount of metal. Lotus has refined this ability by speaking in poetry to create hyper-specific metal creations like daggers and swords. And finally, we have the voice of Arrako, Redroot the Forest, who has the ability to communicate with plants and soil and can also rot any organic material. Unfortunately, Redroot has been absent recently, thus not allowing Arrako to have a voice in matters, and this is because of the events of X of Swords, which led to Redroot breaking a priceless artifact and being imprisoned by the mutant Mad Jim Jaspers, who's also currently imprisoned, so maybe we'll get Redroot back somehow because of that. And that's it, guys. That is the Great Ring of Arrako, who we're going to get to see in their full glory, all fighting together in the upcoming issue X-Men Red number 5, so I'm very much looking forward to that, and I recommend you all check that out as well. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know who your favorite mutant of the Great Ring is, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.